It's like he started off so good, and he's really going downhill. All right, I'm back with another Apologist Reacts scene. I'm continuing a little series through some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Today we're going to be looking at some scenes from Captain America Civil War. Several people recommend this movie as a movie where you've got people having debates to analyze. And what I'm doing with these movies, if this is the first time that you've watched one of these, is I'm an apologist, I'm a speaker, and I try to help people to have healthy, productive dialogues. And so what I'm analyzing in these scenes is not accuracy. It's not like, a scientist watching science scenes and, talking about what's real and what's not. I'm looking at this as a dialogue expert, as someone who I want to help you to kind of take a look at these, basically like a case study, and see, are these dialogues or debates, are they healthy and are they productive? And what are the things that characters are doing that are not helpful, that we don't want to emulate in our dialogues? And what are some things that we can actually learn from? And again, I understand this is Hollywood. They are going to want to speed through these scenes. So you're going to get people a lot of times doing things that are not very helpful, like things not to emulate. I get that. I also get that sometimes Hollywood writers are going to be trying to be extra rhetorical or extra clever. You see that a lot with like The West Wing. Like there's no one that talks that fast and thinks that fast and is that hilarious, or almost no one is actually like that. It's not very realistic, and it's more fun to watch. It's more entertaining. So I get that. But let's take a look at these scenes from Civil War. It's been a long time since I've seen this. I've seen this one a couple of times. I really like this Marvel. I think this is one of my favorite Marvel movies, but it has been a while. And so let's take a look.
5 years ago, I had a heart attack. I dropped right in the middle of my backswing. It turned out it was the best round of my life because after 13 hours of surgery and a triple bypass, I found something 40 years in the Army never taught me. Perspective. The world owes the Avengers an unpayable debt. You have fought for us, protected us, risked your lives, but while...
Okay, just something I want to point out here. So there's something really good about this. I don't remember exactly what it said. I know he's getting ready to present the, here's the problem and we need you guys to kind of sign this agreement or kind of come under more scrutiny, the accords or whatever. But before he does that, I mean, this is a pretty common trope that a character starts a monologue like this with a story from his past. He sits in The West Wing all the time. I think sometimes this can be annoying because kind of like get to the point. I think like adding that story later maybe sometimes. I've done this before. It's like you kind of like you're having a dialogue. You're trying to explain a point. You say like, it's kind of like this thing that, that this happened this other time. That's fine. Anyway, what I really like though is he's starting off with this kind of, it's not just common ground. He's really praising them for how much they've helped in the past. So it's kind of like common ground, and something that I'm wanting to talk about more, and I've been thinking a lot about lately, especially as I've been analyzing some social media dialogues. I've got a project that I'm kind of working on behind the scenes that relates to analyzing social media dialogues in a more specific way. I don't want to talk about it right now. That's going on in my head as I film this. And so one of the things in there that this project has helped me to notice, and the other people that I've been kind of speaking into this, particularly my wife, as we brainstorm this idea, is just noting the difference between just saying the common ground, saying the thing, versus spending some time elaborating on that. Spending some time explaining, here's why I think that. Because you're kind of demonstrating that this is genuine, that you really mean the thing that you're saying, versus, when a conservative says, yeah, I agree poverty is bad, and then like moves on to the counter argument. It's just too quick. The other person, unless they're really charitable, is probably not going to be convinced that you really mean that. They think that you're just saying what you need to say to get them to kind of shut up and listen to you. And they're going to be very distracted by that. And they're going to have a hard time taking that statement as a serious thing. It's actually going to affect the way that they think about you. And so, it's better in that example to I'm really concerned about poverty. I know there are a lot of people that are really struggling, that are like barely making it paycheck to paycheck, and there's no savings account, there's no backup, and it is really, really stressful to live like that. To know that there is no emergency fund and you are one emergency away from like bankruptcy or like a severe financial crisis, that is incredibly stressful. It colors everything else in life. And I want our society to figure out the best way to help people that are still in that situation. Like something like that. If that's true, say something more like that. I mean, you don't have to say it like that. Say it was whatever's true for you. But that's everything I just said I agree with. And it does a better job of demonstrating that you believe what you're saying. Now, it doesn't mean that the other person is always going to believe you. There's some people that are over the top uncharitable, and there's nothing you can say that'll convince them that you're not a horrible person because you disagree with them about a political or social issue or whatever. But that is what you see. I don't remember his character's name. This guy here doing is he's not just saying we owe you a debt or you've been really helpful. Like, and then he goes on, and you can tell that he means it by the way that he's saying, you've fought for us. I don't remember what else he said. You fought for us and blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm going to go back a little bit. This is really good. This is a thing that you want to take a lesson from. If you've got to say something hard, if you can start by complimenting the people on the other side in a very genuine way, or saying something common groundy in a very genuine way that is going to help bring their defenses down. It's going to make it easier for them to hear than the hard things that you have to say. Because the hard things you have to say, you're saying in spite of the fact that you believe these other things that you just said that you have the commonality on.
Fought for us, protected us, risked your lives. But while a great many people see you as heroes, there are some who would prefer the word vigilantes.
And what word would you use, Mr. Secretary?
That's legitimate. That was a good question. Like, you see, he's distancing himself from the concern and saying, at least there's some people that would use this other word. And he's doing it in a really non-accusatory way, I think. I think he's doing a really good job. But I think it's also fair for Black Widow then to respond, but is that what you think? It's a clarification question. Totally appropriate. And let me back up a little bit because I don't remember how he responds.
What word would you use, Mr. Secretary?
How about dangerous?
Okay. That's not where I thought he was going to go, and is probably I don't think he necessarily loses points for it because he's being honest. I think that's the important thing here is he's being fair. He's putting his cards on the table, and I don't think that was that bad. I think it probably could have been done in a little bit of a better way. He could have said, honestly, I have a concern that sometimes what you're doing is dangerous. It's a little bit better than how about dangerous, right? But anyway, it's not that bad. Let me go back a little bit.
You use, Mr. Secretary.
How about dangerous? What would you call a group of U.S.-based, enhanced individuals who routinely ignore sovereign borders and inflict their will?
Okay, so it's like he started off so good, and he's really going downhill as far as like doing the kinds of things again that I'm interested in. Is this healthy, productive dialogue? Is he doing the kinds of things that are going to help keep a dialogue healthy and productive? And he is moved from, everything I said before, I don't want to repeat everything I said before, to this now much worse situation where he's asking very pointed, leading questions. What would you call a group that is, rhetorical X, rhetorical Y, rhetorical Z, right? And they might all be true, but again, like in a situation where there's a lot of rapport, a lot of trust, and a lot of history of conversations like this, I think there are some people that like you can have more blunt conversations. I know families where just like part of the chemistry in the family, like everyone's adults now, the kids are grown up, and so in the interactions between the siblings, the adult siblings, and the siblings within the parents, like there is just a culture of bluntness. And in some families that can work better than in some other families where maybe people are sometimes more sensitive or whatever. There's different reasons why sometimes like the blunt thing is not always going to work well. Like it just depends on the culture. And so if there's a lot of history in this culture where like the bluntness is the best thing and like getting all the cards really, really on the table, maybe this is fine, but I would do it without starting the statement with, what would you call this? It would be better to say, the reason that I think this is dangerous is because from my perspective, I feel like you guys are being, then you could even be rhetorical X, rhetorical Y, rhetorical Z. Like, you've like just let those very kind of blunt adjectives that he's using or whatever. It kind of invites more of a, well, here's why I disagree, versus whenever you kind of start something with, what would you call it when someone does this? Like, it's just going to put people on the defense. You almost never want to do that. All right, let me back up a little bit.
And inflict their will wherever they choose, and who, frankly, seem unconcerned about what they leave behind.
Okay, so I think one thing that made that last part better is the fact that he said seemed. He's not accusing them of saying you aren't concerned with what you leave behind. You seem unconcerned with what you leave behind. I think that one word makes a really big difference in a dialogue. It's not always going to be that particular word when you're applying this to your life. But what the important thing there is that he's saying, like, this is how it seems to me. It implies an open-mindedness. It implies he's not accusing them. He's suggesting that, like, this is at least how you come across. And I've had those conversations with people where it's like, I don't think that this is actually you. I just think that you don't know that you're coming across sometimes as closed-minded or whatever, right? And that's a lot better than just saying you're closed-minded. Like, it's so much better, right? So anyway.
New York. Washington, D.C.
Notice how softly he's saying those cities?
Sokovia.
This is really good tone of voice from him. And I think showing them the footage, I think, is perfectly appropriate.
Lagos.
For any of the Avengers that are looking away from the screen, that doesn't speak super highly of them, I think.
Okay, that's enough.
For the past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's an arrangement the governments of the world can no longer tolerate.
Blunt, clear, it's okay.
I think we have a solution.
And he comes with a solution. It's good.
The Sokovia Accords, approved by 117 countries, it states that the Avengers shall no longer be a private organization. Instead,
I think the raising of his voice a little bit, not helpful, but I think the fact that he is summarizing clearly what the Accords are is good.
they'll operate under the supervision of a United Nations panel only when and if that panel deems it necessary.
Yeah, so the tone of voice here is really not ordered towards persuasion here. It's more, here's the deal, here's what you've got to do. It's strong-arming kind of tone. And I feel like so much better would be to say, here's what the Accords say. It says that you're going to be under this supervising body. Like, just, you hear how in my tone of voice, it's closer to like the way that he said New York City, Washington, D.C. Like, it might be an interesting acting choice. It adds some drama and some intensity into the scene, and maybe that's what they wanted. But if you're trying to persuade people, this tone and in a context like this is not going to be as helpful as a calmer tone.
The Avengers were formed to make the world a safer place. I feel we've done that.
I think that was fine. It was soft. It's clear. Here's kind of the counter argument. It's kind of like we have made the world a safer place without this kind of a thing. So it's okay.
Tell me, Captain, do you know where Thor and Banner are right now? If I misplaced a couple of 30 megaton nukes, you can bet there'd be consequences.
That's a really good argument. Like, again, like, you know, 'cause sometimes I'm kind of thinking about the healthy dialogue side versus the productive dialogue side, which is going to involve more how good are the arguments back and forth, or are they fallacious or whatever. This is a really good argument from the. Is he a general or someone from the military? I don't remember who this person is. But like the idea that like just the fact that you don't know where these super weapons are is problematic.
Compromise, reassurance. That's how the world works. Believe me, this is the middle ground.
So, there are contingencies.
3 days from now, the UN meets in Vienna to ratify the accords. I'll talk it over.
This is good. Clarification question and then clear answer. Here's exactly what the situation is. His tone of voice is better now, that military person. Yeah, this is good.
And if we come to a decision you don't like?
Interesting. So I think that's pretty good. I think like Black Widow is bringing out the elephant in the room in a non-aggressive way. Like, what happens if we don't do this? I think it's a totally appropriate question and probably helpful for them to be able to make a decision, right? So I think that's great.
Then you retire.
Okay. Secretary of State, I would give him a 7.5. I thought he did pretty well in most of that. The leading questions, the raising of his voice, sometimes the tone of his voice wasn't great, but it could have been a lot worse. Who else in the director? I want to say Captain America. I'll give him an 8 just because his counter argument wasn't very good, but he stated it well, and it was what's in his head. It's good to get that out on the table. I want to say both Black Widow and I think that was War Machine earlier that also asked a question. I thought there were 10s. Really good. Tony didn't say anything. That's probably good. Yeah, but that could have been a lot worse. So let's move on.
Has a Congressional Medal of Honor, which is one more than you have.
So let's say we agree to this thing. How long is it going to be before they LoJack us like a bunch of common criminals?
That's not a great look from Tony, by the way. I mean, it's funny, but don't look like that when you're listening and be in a conflict or a debate.
17 countries want to sign this. 117, Sam, and you're just like, no, it's cool. We got
How
it.
long are you going to play both sides?
I have an equation.
Yeah, this is not great. This is not great. The tone is very accusatory. It's a little bit insulting. I think both War Machine and Falcon's characters are, they are escalating the tension in the room. And there's already going to be a lot of tension in the room as it is. So it's not helpful. Let me go back a little bit.
Secretary Ross has a Congressional Medal of Honor, which is one more than you have.
So let's...
One more than you have. It's like, that's not helpful. And like, maybe the other guy would deserve a Medal of Honor if the committee that decides that would have like taken like a look at all the different things he did. It's just putting him down. I think it's fine to say this is not nobody telling us this stuff. This is a Secretary of State. He is battle hardened, an amazing soldier. I think that's fine, but it's one more than you have. Suddenly took it from good to bad.
Say we agree to this thing. How long is it going to be before they LoJack us like a bunch of common criminals?
It's an okay question, but it could be worded a lot less aggressively and pointedly, but it's okay. At least he's asking a question.
117 countries want to sign this. 117, Sam, and you're just like, no, it's cool. We got
How
it.
long are you going to play both sides?
I have an
Okay, so Warhammer is being better than Falcon, but Falcon's being pretty bad. Warhammer's not being War Machine, whatever it is. It's not great.
equation.
Oh, this will clear it up.
Gosh, like calm down. Let someone else in the conversation. They're just rude.
In the 8 years since Mr. Stark announced himself as Iron Man, the number of known enhanced persons has grown exponentially. And during the same period, the number of potentially world-ending events has risen at a commensurate rate.
He's saying it's our fault?
I'm saying there may be a causality.
This is pretty good. I think Vision's tone is great, and he's making an argument well. Captain America's question back to him is pretty good. It's pretty fine. It's a clarification question, and business responding clearly. That they're and saying that there might be a causality here is good. There's not always obviously necessarily one, but there could be.
Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. And conflict breeds catastrophe.
This felt so much like Yoda, right? Like fear leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, or whatever that whole thing was. That felt like, and then that last one, and there's like that long pause. Like it almost felt like this got ripped straight out of, what was that? Attack of the Clones.
Oversight. Oversight is not an idea that can be dismissed out of hand.
Boom.
Tony.
Okay, so boom to your. I'm going to start using the term target a lot because I keep on rereading Rappaport's rules, which are a really helpful kind of set of 4 rules for a debate, and I'm going to refer to them a lot. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but he refers to people who, the person you're countering, the other side of the debate as your target. Any debate with 6, 7, 8 people in the room is already going to be a lot harder than when you've got like 1 versus 1. And so this is more chaos can happen. You see this in social media conversations. When it's why I tell people, like, try to get most of the real debate to happen in a one-on-one thread, or better, on Zoom or on the phone or in person or whatever. And so anyway, when you have, like let's say several people in the room on one side and several other people on the other side, when someone kind of backs up your side, just let it be. You don't have to add a, kind of like, stick it to you. It's not good.
You're being uncharacteristically non-hyperverbal.
It's because he's already made up his mind.
Boy, you know me so well. Actually, I'm nursing an electromagnetic headache. That's what's going on, Cap. It's just pain. It's discomfort. Who's putting coffee grounds in the disposal? Am I running a bed and breakfast for biker gang?
That's not helpful. I mean, he's venting now. And I mean, it can be helpful for people to see that you are this, frustrated. If a counselor is in the room, they're going to be like, I'm going to note that, But don't do this. Don't suddenly go from the debate to being mad at people for being messy or whatever. Like, that could happen later.
Oh, that's Charles Spencer, by the way. He's a great kid. Computer engineering degree, 3.6 GPA. Had a floor-level gig at Intel planned for the fall. But first, he wanted to put a few miles on his soul before he parked it behind a desk, see the world, maybe be of service. Charlie didn't want to go to Vegas or Fort Lauderdale, which is what I would do. He didn't go to Paris or Amsterdam, which sounds fun. He decided to spend his summer building sustainable housing for the poor, guess where? Sokovia. He wanted to make a difference, I suppose. I mean, we won't know because we dropped a building on him while we were kicking ass.
Okay, so this can be done badly. I feel pretty good with what he's doing here of just trying to make sure that we're keeping the unintentional victims, the civilian casualties, literally, in mind when we try to analyze like how we ought to be. It's definitely rhetorical, and my style tends to avoid being very rhetorical because I want to be very careful I just want to be really clear to the people I'm talking to that if they're being persuaded, it's not because I'm good at rhetoric, it's because my argument is better. And so I sometimes am kind of sucking some of the rhetoric out and taking more time and just trying to make it really clear, this is what my argument is. And I think my argument is better because of this. And it's not over the top rhetorical. People can become really quickly suspicious when you're being over the top rhetorical. But this is not rubbing me the wrong way.
There's no decision-making process here. We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game. If we can't accept limitations, we're boundaryless, we're no better than the bad guys.
Not as good. Not as good, right? It is going to instantly put people on the defensive. He's raising his tone of voice. He's being accusatory. He's making a strong argument. And yeah, he could be right, but even if he is right, the way that he's making the argument is going to be hard for people who disagree to hear what he's having to say because he's sort of calling them bad guys, right? That's going to make it hard for people to hear you. See how people respond.
Tony, if someone dies on your watch, you don't give up.
Who said we're giving up?
We are for not taking responsibility for our actions. This document just shifts the blame.
Sorry, Steve, that is dangerously arrogant. This is the United Nations we're talking about. It's not the World Security Council. It's not SHIELD. It's not Hydra.
No, but it's run by people with agendas, and agendas change.
That's good.
This is all good.
That's why I'm here. When I realized what my
Pretty
weapons
good.
were capable of in the wrong hands, I shut it down, stopped manufacturing.
Tony, you chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose.
What if this panel sends us somewhere we don't think we should go? What if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us? We may not be perfect, but the safest hands are still our own.
If we don't do this now, it's going to be done to us later. That's the fact. That won't be pretty.
You're saying they'll come for me.
We would protect you.
Maybe Tony's right. If we have one hand on the wheel, we can still steer.
So a lot of back and forth happening. I don't want to try to analyze every single little argument because I just think that generally this is going really well right now. There is a good back and forth happening. People are making arguments. People are countering them with their own. This is really good. The tone has calmed down. Like if the whole conversation could be like this, maybe asking each other more questions, that would be good. But as far as the arguments go, this is going really well now.
Take it off.
Aren't you the same woman who told the government to kiss her ass a few years ago?
I'm reading the terrain. We have made some very public mistakes. We need to win their trust back.
Focus up. I'm sorry.
So Falcon is the worst in this particular dialogue. It doesn't mean like he's not as bad as, Thor grabbing, Tony by the throat in the previous thing, but he has such a bad attitude and keeps on being derisive of the people that he disagrees with. And he just did that with Black Widow. And I think she responded really well by not taking that bait and just kind of making her argument. Even look at his body language. This is not good body language. This does not indicate any kind of openness. Spoiler alert, I think he's going to have to get the lowest score in this particular dialogue.
Did I just mishear you, or did you agree with me?
Oh, I want to take it back.
No, you can't retract it. Thank you. Unprecedented. Okay, case closed.
I think that's just kind of funny. Like, you can definitely be obnoxious and push someone away from wanting to be on your side. Like, don't do that. But I'm not going to be too hard on Tony on that one because I think some of that is just they're just trying to add a light moment in a really heavy conversation.
When?
I have to go.
Yeah, I think it's totally appropriate for someone if they get a text about someone that they love dying, very appropriate for them to kind of say, I need to go. I think he could have chosen if he wanted to share a little bit more or say, like, I just got really bad news. I don't want to talk about it yet, but I need to go process that. I want to say there'd be a little bit better. Like, it depends on the context. There's certainly things going on in your private life that, like, you don't owe people that information. But the downside here is it could be interpreted as he doesn't like the way the debate's going, and he's just like, I'm leaving. I'm exiting this prematurely. I think that was pretty good. Okay, so how would I rate people? I would rate, Falcon is the worst. I would give him a 2. War Machine, Warhammer, give him a 5. Tony, I'll also give him a 5. There's a lot he did well. There's a lot he didn't do well, though. Black Widow, I would give a 10, especially for how well she handled that comment from Falcon. Captain America, look at my body language now. Captain America, it's just what feels comfortable. Captain America, I will give a 9. He was pretty good. I don't remember anyone else interacting in that. Oh, Vision. Vision was great. I give Vision a 10. Vision was really, really good at the way that he made his argument. So that's this video. I'm going to stop it here because this has been long, but I've got 2 more scenes from Captain America Civil War that I will do. So I will come back and do that in the next episode. Go have good and important conversations.